Ready. Okay, welcome to the Crown Council's Practice Solution Program. I'm Stuart Anderson, and today we're joined by co-founder of Forward Science, Robert Whitman. Robert and Kelly Kunkel, his partner, have joined us at the past 2 Crown Council annual events and have also provided us with one of the most watched webinars in the past year, Sex, Drugs, and Oral Cancer. Real classic, Rob. They're experts in saving lives and providing simple, effective oral cancer screening products. Last week on the Crown Council email network, there was a trend developing that Rob noticed and started to chime in and answer questions, and then came to us and said, I've got a better way, a better solution to this, and that would be through a webinar. So we're going to spend some time together as Rob develops a solution to some of the problems that were talked about on the Crown Council email network. And I'm going to turn the time over to him. He's going to share those solutions, and we're going to go from there. So Rob, it is your screen and your program here. We're grateful to have you with us. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, and thanks for letting us be a part of what you guys are doing as well. I'll switch over real quickly to my slides and go from there, and then we'll kind of get a little bit about what we've been hearing, what we've been seeing about in the oral oncology world. So real briefly, this is a picture of my little son, which keeps me ticking. So if I have some extra coffee that I'm taking sips of, I apologize. He's 2, and I think the day he turned 2, it was official that they had the terrible twos. I think it was, my wife and I joke, it was within the minute of when he turned 2, it became real. So, so real quickly, I mean, we're excited to be part of the Crown Council and a resource partner, and it's been fun working with such an advanced group. So we appreciate the opportunity. Forward Science has a lot of things on the market, and kind of want to go over kind of where we fit in with why we're doing this. And, you know, again, thankful for the opportunity. But the oral ID device has been on the market. We launched it a while back, and I share this because, you know, when we first got into the oral oncology world, there's a lot of people that had questions and had concerns with oral cancer and then what the complications were. And some of the biggest complications for what we're seeing right now with a lot of the different things are, you know, cancer side effects. And the more you're in the cancer world, the more you're finding cancer, the more you're diagnosing things, the more complications you're going to find, because these patients, of course, have many different variables that the average patient doesn't have to suffer from. When we first came out, we thought, we started doing research, and we thought that the xerostomia or dry mouth thing that people were talking about was something that we heard about a lot of times in the cancer world, mucositis. So these were some of the quotes that we kept hearing from patients and clinicians and things of that nature, where we really wanted to help solve the problem. Us as a company, we tend to hear the problems and then try to come up with solutions on the back end. It's probably the nature of an engineer by trade. So we're always trying to advance dentistry, or as kind of our slogan is, moving science forward. So when we keep hearing these quotes of every morning when I wake up, I have to peel my tongue off the roof of my mouth, or when I swallow, it feels like I'm swallowing glass. We thought a lot of this was mainly in the cancer world. But what we've come to realize that, you know, there's a lot of side effects from cancer that are also synonymous with regular dental offices. And these 3 things that you hear about on a routine basis, or really should hear about on a routine basis, come up all the time. We all know what xerostomia is. It's hard to spell for an engineer because we have difficulty spelling anything. So xerostomia, of course, is dry mouth. Mucositis is kind of a broader term. It's really the inflammation or the ulceration of mucosal membrane. So people think mucositis is a radiation type issue, but mucositis could be a inflammation from gums. It could be a gingivitis issue. It could be after patients have a surgery. And then both the first 2 always result in a pH imbalance that you're worried about. So with us, we started hearing a lot of these things from the oncology world. We work with one of the largest cancer centers in the nation here in Houston, Texas. And the things that they were hearing were also the things that you were seeing, but just in a different way. And we started trying to do the metrics on how common dry mouth is. And again, there's a reason that we're here doing this solution webinar, because you all keep asking the same questions. I'm seeing dry mouth, what do I do? So we did a survey for about 565 dentists. And what we found was that the average office sees 2 out of every 8 patients suffer from dry mouth. That's about 25 patients. Of course, you can do the math. what we're seeing is that that's just the dry mouth that we know of. Now, that's severe dry mouth. That's the mirror sticks to the tongue dry mouth. There's also a minor xerostomic issue that we're seeing, and it happens from a lot of different reasons. The most common causes of dry mouth we know are always going to be chemo and radiation therapy from cancer patients, but you also have to look at the other causes of dry mouth. Now, there's 400 plus medications that cause dry mouth. I don't think I've seen a prescription bottle in the past 10 years on the side of it didn't say may cause dizziness, may cause dry mouth. So that's always an issue with your everyday patient, in addition to other types of immune disorders, Sjogren's patients, patients that are going through different types of treatment. Those are issues as well. So, again, we initially thought this dry mouth thing was rampant in just one population. What we've come to find out is it's everywhere. Unfortunately, almost everybody has some range of dry mouth, whether it's a patient that's a mouth sleeper. I know myself, I wear the night guard every night, so you're welcome for wearing it every night. But that causes dry mouth at times. So there's different reasons that cause dry mouth. But for us, we're trying to figure out what we can do to help these patients. And we know there's a lot of complications with it. And I'm not, I don't have to go down the list of things that if you lose saliva, you are increased for caries risk, because saliva helps buffer pH and saliva helps with a lot of different things. So if you look at all the different things that dry mouth complications cause, it's a pretty big issue that we're seeing across the board. So one of the things about concordance pH, I think one of my biggest learnings about dentistry was everybody understands the value and benefit of pH. I've asked, how many thousands of dentists, do you test the pH of your patient? And then the answer is like, no, how can we? And we came up with a pH strip, and yeah, you can get litmus paper at Walgreens, I'm sure, for a great value. But pH testing is something that's important, because if you have a patient that has great saliva but a low pH, that's still going to result in other damage in their mouth as well. So there's a lot of factors that play into dry mouth, mucositis, pH imbalance that we always are learning more and more about. But we know that we're always trying to get that mouth at a normal, healthy state. So to kind of go into the options that we're seeing, in the survey that we conducted, we surveyed 565 dentists, and 63% of the dentists that recommend or told us what they recommend over-the-counter options like Biotine or Xylomet, things of that nature. 33% recommend nothing. So of 565 dentists, 96% recommend over-the-counter options or nothing. And what we found out after that was we asked them how often do they think that their protocol works. And 86% of those dentists that answered admit that their protocol for dry mouth doesn't work. It needs to be changed, but there typically isn't a solution that is currently on the market. We heard that from oncology. Right now, there's patients going through oncology that the reason that they're struggling through cancer treatment isn't just because cancer treatment, it's because they're not able to get the proper nourishments in their body because they can't eat. And they can't eat because they can't swallow and chew because of both mucositis and xerostomia. So that's really where we were. I wanted to paint a picture of what we've been hearing. There's a lot of information out there about dry mouth, the severity, and all those things, and we know it's an issue. But again, the concern is that the current options that we're seeing are either mislabeled or it's used incorrectly. So to kind of go over some of the over-the-counter options, xylitol products, and of course there's benefit behind that. Biotine, quite a few years back, Biotine changed their formula, and the hard thing is that Biotine does a very good job marketing, so your patients see it all the time. But Biotine doesn't work to treat the patient's symptoms. What it does is it masks pain. So Biotine is actually defined as like almost a temporary coating in the tissue. And that's really what some of the other prescription options like NewGuard and Episil do, is they're designed and FDA cleared to coat or temporary relief for the tissue, which is great for those patients that you need that relief for. But the problem is we need to treat those symptoms. We need to find a way to actually have those patients take care of themselves and treat the root cause problem, not just mask the pain. And that's really what we sought out to do. Again, we work with one of the largest cancer centers, and we said, hey, there's got to be a better way that we can help these patients go through chemo and radiation therapy and be able to eat and drink at night. Or a patient that's on multiple medications in a regular dental office, be able to have that relief. And that's really what we did. So SalivaMax is a product that is a new classification and a new product for really the treatment of xerostomia mucositis. And again, we highlight new treatment because most other products on the market, they work, but they're not a treatment. They're a pain relief or masking of those symptoms. And it's really something that's been challenging for people to understand because it is so new and so unique. And that's really where I kind of want to outline how it works. It is an FDA cleared product. There is nothing else like it on the market as far as being made here in the United States, being able to use on a routine basis, and being able to use to treat the symptoms, not mask the pain. So it's FDA cleared for both mucositis and xerostomia. And I think a lot of the questions come in is when we start talking about how it works and how do you get it? That's, I think, the most common question that we were getting was, how does the product work? What does it actually do? And how do my patients get this product? So those are some of the things that I want to try to answer the questions that we've been hearing from you all on a consistent basis through the forum. But there's a lot of different indications of what it does. But as far as how it works is it comes in single-use packets, very similar to Sweet and Low and Splenda of the world. You get a 1 ounce vial of a 1 ounce vial to mix it in. You put 1 ounce of water, pour the SalivaMax in it, and you mix it up for a few minutes. Once you mix it up, you take half of it, rinse with half of it for 60 seconds, spit it out, and rinse with the other half. So it's non-systemic. There are actually no drugs in it at all. So the great thing is it's all natural. We're not really taking any interactions or any complications or side effects with it to affect the body. We also have the ability to rinse and spit, which means it's not systemic. And if you do this 3 or 4 times a day for minor xerostomic patients, up to 10 times a day for severe xerostomia or these cancer patients, we've seen tremendous relief. But the challenge always is, if the patient only does 2 rinses a day for 1 day, it's not going to work. It's not masking the pain. It takes a few uses and a few days for us to actually infiltrate the tissue and benefit and actually replace those ions that we're missing. And a good visual that we came up with here internally was, on the left side, you see an unhealthy mucosa with calcium ions and phosphates and bicarbs, and that's really what saliva is made of. We're replacing those, or we're actually missing a lot of those ions, and we have a lack of saliva. But when you start to use SalivaMax, we're penetrating past the epithelial tissue and replacing those ions that we're missing. So think of it as you have to replace those ions slow and steady, as opposed to it can't just do it once and then everybody's fine. And then it's also going to be a long-term play, because unless the patient relieves their xerostomia for some reason, you're always going to have a xerostomic issue. And that's the hard thing with patients that just want normal saliva. If you have a patient on multiple medications, well, until they get off those multiple medications, we're always going to have that lack of saliva issue or that xerostomia issue. So it's kind of a win or lose-win battle. If they're still taking the medications, they feel great from whatever symptoms they're relieving, but they're going to have that xerostomic issue. So a lot of patients are going to be using this type of rinse for quite a while until we can alleviate their issue of why it's causing dry mouth, or for the head and neck radiation patient, it's going to be a forever issue. So that's kind of how it works as far as scientifically. The way it works from a provider standpoint is it actually costs the provider nothing at all. It costs the dentist, your office, it costs you nothing at all to fill out a prescription, fax it into the pharmacy that we work with. It is a nationwide pharmacy. Not every pharmacy covers it because of how unique the product is. So you do have to fax it to the number at the top. If the patient takes this prescription to CVS or Walgreens, they're probably never going to get the product. So we always focus on that. At the same time, it's filled through pharmaceutical benefits. So you have the ability to fill out the patient's insurance information. Of course, your information's at the bottom as the prescriber, and then you check the quantity that you see. Depends on the severity, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 10 times a day. That's going to depend on the quantity that's going to be dispensed to the patient. We also have the ability to bill their insurance again. So there's really 3 different ways it works. You're going to fill all this information out. Patient either has insurance that's covered, insurance is not covered, or they're a Medicaid, Medicare patient. I'll walk through all 3 of those. So if the patient has commercial insurance covers this the majority of the time, over 50% of the time. And when it does cover, since we're the manufacturer, we're not the pharmacy, we actually pay the coupon or the copay for the patient. So if a patient has commercial insurance coverage and it covers SalivaMax, there actually is no cost to the patient at all. If they have a $50 to $150 copay, whatever the copay is, we pay that copay as the manufacturer because we want the patient to see relief from the product. So we pay that for the patient. Patient gets product at no cost at all. If the insurance declines it for some odd reason, and it's insurance, I'd love to tell you there's a perfect reason, but there's not. If insurance declines it for some odd reason, and again, the pharmacy does all this insurance billing, you guys don't. If insurance declines it, what happens is we ship them a trial. They get a 30-packet sample or trial for them to use. And then at that point, they see the benefit of it, and they have the option to do a cash pay rate. For a cash pay rate for a patient to call in, it's only $99 for 120 count. So it's cheaper than what they're seeing for Biotine for the most part. If they are Medicare, Medicaid, any other type of government insurance, by law, you cannot provide them any free trials. Those patients do not get the free trial. They just have to do the cash pay discounted rate of $99 per 120 count. So again, it's unique in dentistry because patients aren't buying product over the counter, and it's a prescription strength rinse, but at the same time, it's not going to cost anybody anything out of pocket. And that's really where we wanted to go, because a lot of patients have the ability to get the product that they need. And the reason insurance is paid for it because there's a million studies that show long-term patients reduce the opioid use, patients reduce the complications from other medications, or they reduce the issues that they have in their mouth. If you can just replace that saliva, replenish the healthy ions in the cells, insurances see a lot more savings long-term. And that's really why insurance is beginning to cover this a lot more. So again, we have a lot of quotes, a lot of feedback. This is a patient that used to use Biotine, that she actually used to work in the facility that we occupy. We have about a 19,000 square foot facility here in Houston, Texas. And I urge you all, if you're like any other dentist that we work with, you enjoy seeing how products are made. We make everything in-house. So if you ever want to come take a field trip, it's fun to see. But she came back to the old facility, took a field trip, and she just said, I use Biotine every day, and how do I get SalivaMax? And she's been benefiting from it every day. So we've seen a lot of benefit from it from patients. Kind of on the other end of the spectrum, oral mucositis care. A lot of offices don't see the severe mucositis that we see a lot as far as cancer patients, but we're seeing a lot more prevalence of mucositis as far as any other types of inflammation or tissue wounds or trauma. And that's what we've been able to successfully help with as well. For the majority of cancer patients that are going through treatment, they start SalivaMax 2 weeks prior to treatment because we're replacing those ions before, unfortunately, they get kind of zapped very quickly. We're seeing a reduction in mucositis. We're seeing a longer or a shorter term that mucositis is actually going to be present, a reduction in pain of swallowing, and a lot of different things. So, again, to kind of tie it all back to where we were with the cancer world, we started in the cancer world and we know this works for the worst cases of xerostomia and mucositis. We're also seeing tremendous benefit for minor cases of xerostomia in every dental office that they typically see in 1 out of every 4 patients. So, again, different quotes, different things that we've heard from patients that went through treatment: burning mouth, dryness of the mouth. Those are things that we've seen. The last thing that I'll share with you is when you're going through cancer treatment, there's usually that first week that patients have that pain, and we didn't have anything to resolve that pain with patients. So about 2 months ago, we launched a product called Salivacaine, and it is a 5% benzocaine. So it's very similar to any other cane that you see. There's nothing else like this as far as being able to use in a powder form. And we've been able to help relieve that pain while we're treating the symptoms with SalivaMax. So it's really a 1-2 punch. If a patient goes in for, an oral surgery and does a dry socket, we have studies doing that. We're able to see dry socket being relieved, and then helping with a post-trauma or a cancer patient with that pain. That's where Salivacaine comes in. So we're able to help these patients relieve a lot. On the prescription form, you actually see that we supply Salivacaine at no cost for the patients, because if a patient has pain, typically it's related to some sort of reason that they have a lack of saliva. We give a patient free Salivacaine with every prescription of SalivaMax that's written, if the patient needs it. And of course, that's up to you to indicate that. So again, there's a lot of things out there to kind of summarize it all back. SalivaMax helps you in your office with a lot of those things. It's not means it's replacing Biotine. If a patient sees benefit from Biotine, that short-term relief, that's great. Salivacaine can help with that. But in the big picture, we're trying to treat that symptom of why they're getting that dry mouth issue or why they have the mucositis. And that's really where SalivaMax has its play. The last story I'll share with you, and then I'll leave you guys, and hopefully we can answer any questions in the future if I left any. But my grandmother was going through a low-dose chemotherapy, and she had lung cancer, or still does, and she's been on hospice for 7 months, which is unheard of. So she had dry mouth, and I asked her what her dry mouth was from, and whether it's low-dose chemotherapy or if it's from multiple medications. We're not really sure, but she said every night I had to butter my pills. And just that visual of, my 87-year-old grandmother buttering her pills at night to get them down, just, of course, isn't the best feeling in the world. So we sent her a lot of Saliva Max to try out, and she tried it for 2 or 3 times a day, and it didn't work. So she called me, and actually she texted me, and my grandmother, who's 87, sends emoji text messages, which amazes me. So she's in New Orleans, and I live in Houston, and she said, hey, I don't really see the relief. And I said, well, Mama, you need to make sure that you do more per day. And she thought we were going to run out of packets. She's like, well, I don't know about your business, and typical New Orleanian, they're in their world, and that's where my family's from. So I guess I can say it, but she just wanted one more Saint season, is what she said. And the Saints had a terrible year last year. But so she said, look, I tried 4 or 5 after I talked her into it, and 5 was her number. 5 rinses a day of Saliva Max helped her not have to butter her pills at night. So I share that story because we're not really sure what the number is. Every patient is different. Every severe xerostomia may be different for me and you and everybody else. So it's not a perfect equation of what number. But what I can tell you is we're seeing relief for every patient. If they do it 3 or 4 days in a row, we see tremendous relief long term, which then puts them in the healthy zone for restorations and making sure that the caries risk is decreased and all those types of things that we're seeing. So that's really it on my end. I mean, anything that you all need from us as far as Forward Science, we're here to help. It's been fun to be a part of the Crown Council because we talk about our technology and our programs not being for everyone, and it's not. It's for the people that are trying to provide the highest standard of care for their offices for the right reasons, and that's really why we're here. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of educate a little more, answer the questions, and by all means, if you see us, hop on a forum and ask a question, or if you want to ask it for us, we're here to help. So thanks again for the opportunity, and if I missed anything, let me know.
Thank you, Rob. I'll post the video for the council members, as well as contact information for you so they can ask questions and then obviously place their orders and start using these great products. So we appreciate it. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks. We appreciate your time.